And so I think that for a lot of people, again, who take their vote seriously and who really see this as a crossroads kind of election, I am asking people to come join this campaign, and I've had a lot of outreach from Republicans in the last days who say that they are interested in talking about that.
Joining us now, Foundation Professor at George Mason University School of Law, F.H. Buckley. He's the author of the new book, The Way Back, Restoring the Promise of America. In it, he writes in part this: the Republican establishment seeks to persuade voters of its essential niceness, but niceness has not closed the deal on measures of freedom provided by respected conservative and libertarian think tanks. The United States has fallen like a rock. Once the country of promise, America now lags behind many of its first world rivals on measures of economic mobility and has spawned an aristocracy.
You know, the dream of America was a kid could get back from World War II, buy a small house out on Long Island, get married, have 2 or 3 kids, live comfortably in the middle class. Meek and I were talking about it this weekend. There was even the dream in, say, the 50s and 60s of kids in Pennsylvania saying, I'm not going to be in the steel mills like my dad. I'm going to get out of these steel mills and I'm going to go to college. The steel mills aren't even there anymore. Yeah. The dream's collapsing, the rich are getting richer, and the poor are getting poorer. How do we turn that around?
Well, everybody's kind of missed the point. I think it's the crucial message of the 2012 election. It's the key to 2016. We become something of an aristocracy. We are less mobile than other countries. The American dream was a dream where we all get ahead. We can all have a chance to get ahead.
Our kids did better than we did.
Pardon me?
Our kids did better than we did. That was the dream.
That was a dream right now, and people don't believe it anymore, and that has changed.
Because it's not true.
Well, I think they're smarter than a lot of the intelligentsia is what it is. They figured it out, and it's absolutely crucial to turn it around. And I think that in part, I think that was 2012. I think part of the appeal of Donald Trump is precisely the sense that people have that somehow he's going to make a difference in that respect. So
what are the answers?
Yes.
I say that, you know, the idea of mobility, even equality, you can call it socialist if you want, but there are 2 ways back. One way back is roughly more of the same, or dig in deeper, which is Bernie Sanders, and I call that socialist means to socialist ends. And I think that the proper response is capitalist means to socialist ends. I think the way to do it is to realize that all the barriers to mobility are barriers that have been erected by virtue of our bad schools. I mean, it was supposed to be an elevator to the middle class. The elevator is broken. An immigration system that imports immobility. Okay, whatever you think about it, we're more immobile by virtue of our immigration policy. Nobody else is like that.
What do you mean? Go deeper. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, that's interesting.
What I mean is that the immigrants will earn less than Native Americans, and the children of immigrants will earn less than the children of Native Americans, and it goes on to the 3rd generation. So we're importing immobility in that respect.
And inequality.
And inequality, yeah. And you know something? If you're one of America's aristocrats, this is great because you're bringing in maids and gardeners.
Right.
But other countries, they're looking at, you know, taking in people who will add to the economy and make Native people, Native Canadians, Native Americans, whatever, better off. So, you know, my favorite example, since I'm a Canadian and an American, is Canada actually takes in a greater absolute number of economic migrants in the U.S. I mean, 160,000 in the U.S., in Canada versus 140 here. And by virtue of that, Canada can afford to have a really nice, decent policy as to Syrian refugees. Right. And it's not an issue. It's 20% foreign-born, a lot more foreign-born people up there. And it's not a political issue. And why? Because they're looking at Native Canadians.
Should Washington play a role in fixing our broken education system, or just the states and local?
Well, it's mostly states and local. The budget of the Department of Education is something like $60 billion. I mean, frankly, I would block grant it and give it back to the states. I mean, forget about Washington telling people what to do. Give it to the states. And frankly, I might even, you know, I don't like strings attached to things, but I might have strings attached to states and give the money to states that provide for vouchers.
Yeah, talk about the politically connected enemies of promise. I like that
Well, I'm from Washington. I live in Alexandria. I look across the hill, and it's all there. And I've been active in the community in various ways. And I have a friend of mine who says we're moving towards something called corporate fascism. I don't believe that, but there's just a smidgen of truth to make you think about that. So I think what's happening, again, this is part of the appeal of Trump, is there's something new in American politics. The old left-right distinctions seem to be fading, and what's replacing them is a virtue-corruption axis. And that's exactly what was going on in 1776. I mean, the Brits were corrupt. It wasn't that they were unfree, but they were really corrupt at the time. And the Patriots said, we can do better. It's a little like 1776 in that respect. So that's something the Republicans should be picking up.
Yeah.
The book is The Way Back. F.H. Buckley, thank you very much for being on the show with us.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.